Hey everybody, Brian from Ambry Lofts. Sitting in Indianapolis, Indiana, one of the operating centers that I run for. Calling you, doing this video from the big truck. So I told you I'd get back to you guys and give you a little bit more in-depth stuff. So what I wanted to talk about today was if you listen to my pairs and I said, okay, this one had a speed of XYZ and it scored at a 94.6, whatever, right? So I want to just briefly explain how I come up with that without having to pull out the computer and all that kind of good stuff. But the way that the AAU and most clubs scored, like the ranking of your bird, is by what place it came in compared to all entries, right? So of course the speed is part of that ranking. So let's just say that you send in your club 100 birds and this flyer sent 5, you sent 20, this guy sent 50, this guy sent 10, whatever, right? And when you look down the sheet, it may say first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, right? For the birds that clock on the day or within that race time period. Okay. Now, to me, that's a little deceiving, and it's disheartening. It doesn't really show you which was the best bird that day. Okay. If a bird comes in third, well, how far off was it from first place? How far off of it was from second place, time-wise? And that will also be on your race reports. So let's say you got the winner, first place, bird number, blah, blah, blah. On the sheet, it'll say how far that bird flew. And it's going to say 000 as far as the time to beat, right? And then it's going to say it's average speed for that race. So let's just say it's 1,300 yards a minute. All right. I'm not writing this down, so bear with me if the math doesn't quite work out, but I think you'll get the gist of the idea. All right. So second place is bird number Bob Bob Bob. Same flyer, different flyer, don't matter. And it'll say it's 1 minute 58 seconds off of first place. And now let's say the speed is 1250. All right, cool. Third place, fourth place, fifth place, it's gonna be the same way. Now let's say your bird comes in like 18th, or nah, let's not even say that. Let's say your bird is third. All right, and it's blah, blah, blah. Let's say you're an hour off of first place. And your speed, his speed, the winning speed is 1,300, and your speed is 1,190. Okay. When you look at your coefficient, it says, okay, there's 100 birds. You was first, so that's what, 0.001, right? Top 10%, 1%, something like that. You get to third, do the same, take 3, divide it into how many birds were shipped, and that's whatever that percentage is. That's the percentile that bird clocked. Okay. A good rule of thumb is to take the top 20%. So on the race sheets, it'll be like a dotted line. It'll say, okay, these are the top 10% of the birds that clocked based on what was shipped. Here's the next 10%, so now you have the full 20%, right? And then everybody else is just ranked based on clocking order. A good way to start, if you're starting out, some of you more advanced guys, you know exactly what I'm talking about, so just bypass all this. I don't even know why you're watching this video. I can't teach you nothing. But anyway, So you want to have your birds in the top 20%. All right. For me, that's a good rule of thumb. Can you score or have a bird score in the top 20%? If you're always around the 30, the 40, the 50, the 60%, that means that you don't have possibly the strongest bloodline that you need for your particular area. So then now you race the second race, the third race, the fourth race, right? Go through your entire young bird season or old bird season and see how did your bird score overall. All right, maybe it winds up being 5th champion bird, 2nd champion bird of the club. That's great, perfect. See where you are and where are you trying to improve. Me personally, I want to see something that's in the top 10% or 20% overall for all races flown that season or that series. Okay, yeah, a bird can hit top 10% 4 races. The next 4 races, it's a dud. It's down there towards the bottom. Okay, are you going to breed from that bird when maybe you have another bird that's consistently in the top 20%, maybe top 30%, but he's always there, bam, for every race? I would prefer to breed out of that most consistent bird and build your family off of them. All right, so what I do, if you look back at your race sheets or you're looking at one-off races, the results, and you have a particular bird that's in there, maybe let's say that bird is at auction or something like that, go find that bird in your club, in your combine, your federation. You have to score it against all that competition. I use club results for myself, but if you're in a massive multiple clubs or something like that, you might want to go with combine. It's going to give you a truer number. But even with the one-off races, you look at the results for that bird on the final race. When you click that bird's band number on the final race, it'll show you what it did for all previous races. Okay, 118th, 340th, whatever. We're not caring. I don't care where the bird placed. I'm going to look at it. Yeah, how'd he do? You know, how many times was he first or second or third? You know, whatever. I'm more interested in the yards per minute, the speed. So write down that bird's speed for all races for that series. Okay, I use a spreadsheet, but you can do it by hand, whatever. Okay, 1,300 yards a minute, 1,400 yards a minute, 1,196 a minute, 900 yards a minute, 700 yards a minute, 1,400 yards a minute, whatever it is. Add all that up, divide by how many races it was in. So let's say there was, 5 races. Whatever your total number is, divide by 5. That's going to give you pretty much the average speed. That's just like the quick way that I do it. Now, for that percentage, what I do is now I've already established what that bird's typical average speed is against all races, right? Some are faster, some are slower. I get that, but it just gives me an average. So now I go and I look back at the race sheet and I write down all the winning bird's speed compared to the bird that I'm tracking. So let's say there was 8 races and my bird that I'm looking to purchase or that I flew myself, it flew in every race and it clocked in every race. All right, so my bird, this bird, has 8. Now I'm going to go and find all the winners for those same exact 8 races. And I'm just writing down their speed. Okay, our bird clocked at 1340. The winning bird clocked at 1416. All right, cool. Our next entry is 900, but the winning bird only scored at 1100 yards a minute. See what I'm saying? Now take that total winning, all the winning birds average, divide that by the same amount of races. Okay, so let's just happen to say that our bird's average was 1300. let's say all the winners for those same exact races are, 1,500. Now take your 1,300 number, divide that into your 1,500 number. That's going to give you a percentage. All right, 94%, 80%, 60%, 70%, 42%, whatever it is. So that's that second number that you heard me reading out. It was 1,400 yards a minute. It scored at a 93.4, something like that. So that's what I do. Okay. Now, for me personally, depending on where I'm at with my breeding stock, are those birds bred for stock? Are those birds ex-race birds that I've now retired and gonna breed from? Okay, I'm gonna put them through that same exact index or evaluation as I do for the race team. Now let's say my breeding stock, the average for my cocks, all the cocks that I have that have maybe previously flown for somebody else that I purchased, whatever. Let's say that their average speed for all those cocks, let's say there's 5 of them, is 1,300. All right. I have a bird that's mine that we flew, or maybe it's a bird that I want to purchase. Let's say that that bird's average is 1,350. Well, we already got a green check mark, right? Because this bird is faster than the average of what I already have. So that's a plus. That's a win. That's only step 1. Step 2. Let's say the average for those same 5 cocks that I have at stock, maybe they're at 94%. Let's say the bird that I have, or the one that I want to purchase, is at 72% or 80%. Okay, it has the speed that I'm looking for, and it's at 80%. For me, that's the cutoff. I would buy that bird, or I would keep that bird and put that in my, what I call for myself, my tier 1 stock cocks. Okay. Let's say that my stock cocks, they're averaging 1,300 yards a minute, and they're at 94%. The one that I have, or the one that I'm thinking about purchasing, let's say that bird is at 1192. Doesn't quite make the speed, right? But let's say it's at 98%. Well, that bird's always in the top percentile, right? So maybe it doesn't fit my tier 1, my cream of the crop stock cocks, but maybe I could use it as a pumper for those tier 1 cocks. Move the eggs off those tier 1 cocks down to the pumper, the tier 2 cocks. Or maybe you take that tier 2 cock, what I call tier 2. He's good, he's just not as good as my best. But you take that one and breed that cock to, say, your best hen that's also in tier 1. See what I'm saying? So that's kind of like what I do. That's the new thing that I started it last year, when I had my, so last year would have been 23. I started it for breeding season 23 based on my results from 2022 at the Apple Cup. Remember I told you I sent 5, got 4, but they were on the next day. Okay, so I'm like, okay, these birds are better than some of the stock birds that I have, whether they were raced or purchased for stock. That's my line. I bred them. I'm gonna move them in. I'm gonna try to put those ones that have a fault or a weakness, maybe a slight speed gap, or a body gap, the eye, the body. No bird is perfect. Each bird is going to have some sort of fault. So I always try to pair that bird to something that doesn't have that same fault. It has a different fault, but not that same exact one. And try to balance it out, right? So that's what I did for the breeding season of 23, where I had sent the 3 birds back to the Apple Cup based on that breeding logic. and lost one, and then had 2 remaining by the time it came to the final. And then those 2 birds just happened to get lucky and score in the money. So see, I'm like, shit, that works, right? I don't know how it works, but it works. I'm just doing the numbers. I'm just looking at the numbers. All right. So for this year, 2024 breeding season, I have those birds that got returned from the Apple Cup for 23. Those are in stock, and I'm breeding them to something that is better than them. Better than them. So hopefully the youngsters will pick up a little bit more speed. Maybe they'll pick up a little bit better homing ability. Maybe they'll pick up a little bit more stamina. Maybe they'll pick up a little bit more heart, grit, girt, whatever you want to call it. And then we're going to test those babies in 2024 at one-off races, or I'm going to fly the dog crap out of them at home if we don't fly with the club. Speaking of that, when I say I'm going to just loft fly them, they have an easier time racing than they do loft flying at my house. Okay, I'm prior military. I was in the Navy. I was also in the Marine Corps. Prior to going to the Navy, I used to be a cop on the street. I was a cop in the military. So I kind of have that I don't give a attitude, right? You're tasked for a job. I need you to do it. You're set up. You've been fed. You've been trained. Now I need you to perform. And the best ones can handle your training program. I sort of call it the gauntlet, or it's boot camp, right? Hell week, whatever. So once I get my birds out routing real good, where they're taking off for an hour, 2 hours at a time, they're at the house, then I know it's time for training. I used to do the 1 mile, 2 mile, 3 mile, 4 mile, 5 mile, something like that, and then go to 8, and then go to 10, then come back to 8, and then go to 12. That short, repetitive, giving them 2 or 3 times at each station. I can't do that no more. When I started doing that from 2014 up until, 3 years ago, 2020, that's how I used to do it. And then I read an article, a couple articles, and I said, you know what? I think I'm just wasting my time. I do. Because of where I live, it may not work for you, or you may not have the family that can handle the stress. I said, in 2020, F it. They're going to loft fly and route as normal. All that training is normal once they get weaned. When they can show me that they're doing about an hour. Now I fly my birds in the drizzly rain. I fly them when it's foggy at the house, when it's sunny, when it's windy, gusty. They go by the house, they're 3,000 miles an hour. But as soon as they loop around and come back, they're like, ooh, 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 and they're only going like slow. You're right, because they got to fight that. They got to fight that wind. So I want to see them in all kind of elements. I want to get wind on their head. I want to get wind on their sides. I want them to experience tailwinds, but a lot of headwinds if I can get it at the house. But once they can do that for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, and they land like it ain't nothing, my very first training toss is 30 miles. 30, right off the rip. Right off the rip. And the first time you do that, you're scared and you're nervous. I am. Hell, I'm scared every time I turn that first group of youngsters out for the first time. I don't know. They're going to fly off. They're not going to know how to get back in the loft. They're going to go under the loft. Is a hawk going to get them? Is my dog going to get them? The bird's going to just walk and somebody's going to run them over on the car when they come on the driveway. It's nervous. It's nerve-wracking, right? Because anything can happen. But that's what I do. And the only reason why I do that is because over those years from 14 up until 20, I would say, okay, well, hell, I bred 50 youngsters or 40 youngsters, right? And by the time we got to the first race, or by the time I got out 30 miles, I already lost 40%, 50%, 60%, right? Before I even got to 30 miles or 65 miles. right? So then in 20, when I started it, I just took them right to 30 miles on the jump. I actually lost less birds overall. You're gonna lose some, especially for me. So I take that into my breeding consideration. So I go from 60, 70, 80% losses to, say, in 2020, where I was only at 32% losses, 34% losses, right? Last year, we had some youngsters, and we didn't have a bunch. I think we had 10. And by the time we got them trained out to the 100-mile spot, I think we're only down 20%, something like that. We only lost a couple, right? So for me, it works. It may not work for you, but maybe divide your team into two. Let's say you breed 50 youngsters, 100 youngsters, 40 youngsters. I don't know. And if you have the room, split your team into two. Train your one team the way you always have, and then train that other team like what I'm suggesting. Take them right 30 miles if they're training good at home. Okay? And then just see how you're going to lose some from both groups. Doesn't matter. But by the time you get your birds trained out to, say, 80 miles or 100 miles, a lot of guys will go 100 miles because that's typically what the first race station is. See what your losses are. All right? This group, I trained my old way, 20 youngsters. I've got 10. This group, I just jumped them straight to the 30. And now we're out here. Maybe you have 12. Maybe you have 14 left. Maybe you have 8 left. I don't know. But you can't be afraid to do it, in my opinion. You can't make gains unless you're willing to take the risk, right? It's just like in business, ROI, so that's what I do. Anyway, so when I go to breed those birds and that percentage that I just told you, I look at their speed that's documented on a race result or on a one-off race. I see everything that it did. I don't care if it came 24th, first, then last. I don't care. I'm looking at speed. And then I want to see that percentage. For me, for a bird to hit a tier one breeding status, or go from racing to breeding, yeah, it needs to be above my average for that group, the cocks or the hens, and it has to be above that percentage for the cocks or the hens, right? So if I'm wanting to add a cock, he better be just as good or better than what I already have. If not, maybe if I bred him based on breeding, he's down at tier 2. He's still good performance wise, but now it gives me a little bit of time to breed from him and see if he may turn out to be a excellent breeder. I had in 16 with that one hen, 10906, she was the best performing bird. She was sent with, I don't know, maybe it'd be a cousin. It wasn't like a half brother, but say like a cousin. And what was his number? Oh, Eli. 10907. All right, 10907 was a silver cockbird. I wind up naming him Eli, like after the movie, the book of Eli, because the bird, a year or two after I got it back, he wound up going blind in one eye. I don't know. I'm quirky like that. But performance, he sucked. He sucked ass. Okay? Most guys would have just gave him away or just not done anything with him. I said, well, I'm going to breed from him. I needed an extra cock kind of thing, So I let him breed. He's the one that produced my first diploma bird at that 300 the following morning. Remember I was telling you about that? He was the dad to that. Sure enough. So sometimes, just because a bird performs poorly or average or slight poorly, I would still take a round from him if I bred that bird. if I bred that bird. I'm gonna at least take a round from him, because you never know. The genetics might just click, and then boom, he's a golden breeder. But his performance sucked, right? Sometimes you'll get a bird that jam up performance and then suck as a breeder. Okay, so that's how I kind of do my selection or my evaluations for bringing in birds. It has to be equal to or better than what I already have. If it doesn't meet that requirement, I don't care what the pedigree says, who the breeder is, how cheap it is, or how expensive. I'm not bringing it in. I don't care if it's the new fad. Oh, this is the bloodline that's shit hot. Okay, just that individual is not shit hot, so I don't need them. Maybe something else down the line will come up that's the same bloodline that's shit hot. Then I'll bring that in and give it a go with breeding. So that's kind of how that percentage thing that you heard me talk about, how that kind of plays out. Let's see. They need to be equal to or better than what I already have, even if I have flown it myself. If not, the sucker will just stay on the race team until he brings his ranking up, per se. I'm still going to take a youngster out of it as a yearling. You know, when they're a yearling, I'll still take one youngster out of it, and I usually keep that for myself and then test the dog shit out of it. I'm going to run them through the gauntlet, you know. 30 miles today, a rest. 30 miles the next day, a rest. 30 miles the next day. By the time that third one comes around, they better be beating me home or getting home, say within 5-10 minutes of me driving home, just normal, right? And then we're going to go to the 45 or the 50, do the same thing. 60, 65, somewhere in there, do the same thing. Then I'm going to go to the 80. They get 2 chances at the 80 for me. First one is just boom, okay, shit, we figured it out. The second time I take them, they better beat me home or get there right soon after. Now if I'm taking them 80 and they get home shortly after me and they still fly for fucking 40 minutes, okay, they're ready. I can go from 60 miles and go straight to the 100 miler. I can go from 30 miles because they played on that last race and toss and still flown around for another hour. Okay, I didn't wear your asses out. I got your feed. I got to twerk your feet a little bit, and you guys are just ripped, ready to ride. So I'll double their distance, or I'll triple their distance. I want to put that stress on them. When it gets tough, are you still coming home in a good time? That's what I look for. I don't abuse them. I'm not cruel to them. You know, I give them plenty of rest. I have the philosophy of 1 day for every 2 hours on the wing. Okay, that works good for me and works great for my family at home with their schedules and stuff. So, you know, they might be home, get home, I turn them out at 8, let's say they're home by 10, you know, all the birds are home by 10, everything's home by 11, 12, whatever. All right, cool. They're gonna get the full day up, full next day off, and then they're going again. A full day off, then they're going again, right? On their day off, they're gonna law fly. And then later that evening, we'll basket them up, take a quick little hand inventory, see who we're missing, if we're missing, and then boom, they go again, they fly, they come home, they rest, they eat, do their thing, be a pigeon. Next day, they're law flying. That night, they're getting shipped for another Trinitas. And I'll do that all the way up to the 100 miler. So I can usually get my birds from 30 miles to 100 miles within about 4 weeks, 3-4 weeks. But that works for me. And I've got a group of birds now that can do it. At the beginning, they couldn't do it, right? So you're gonna develop that into them, right? You're gonna develop that into the family. So yeah, give it a shot, see if it works for you. I hope I've kind of explained a little bit. I know I talk fast because I get hyped up, but leave me a comment. You can shoot me an email at the ambrylogistics.ky@gmail.com. That's my business email. or just leave me a comment, and I'll try to explain it further with better examples or something like that. But what I do, I don't look at the place rankings, I look at the speed. What's the speed of my bird, or the bird I'm interested in purchasing, compared to the winning bird for each of those same races? 1,300 yards a minute versus 1,500 yards a minute. Okay, what's that percentage? Is it 80? Is it 94? Is it whatever? Is it 78? Whatever. Then I go from there. If they don't meet or exceed what I currently have, if it's a purchased bird, I'm not looking at it no more. I don't need it. If it's something that I bred or got returned back to me, well, I can't use it in my tier 1. Can I use it in my tier 2? Right? Hopefully I can use it in my tier 2. If I can't use it in my tier 2, well then, okay, it's time for me to move it on and find somebody that might want it, or sell it for a couple bucks so I can get the next bag of feed or gas money, something like that. Okay, so I hope that helps, and then we'll get into other things later on. So you guys have a great day. Keep them flying. Peace.